Hello lovelies, welcome to our new series of vlogs, and this particular series is all about the projects that we have created in our client's home. This particular episode is about a Wiltshire home where we have created and made bespoke furnishings throughout the home, and we've also recovered and restored some furniture. And I want to share with you all the things that we have done. I've chosen some key elements that I want you to come behind the scenes of so that you can get a better understanding of what it takes to have a vision, then to create it, and then to install it. This is a perfect example of a full interior installation. So this is the first vlog for season 2. I haven't done a vlog for such a long time. There's been a lot going on and you'll see why, but I really hope that you like this style of vlog and you know what to do. Comment below, tell me what you think. Ready? Yeah. We are going to start with the hallway of this home. There are 4 huge windows, one of which is actually a door. And that door is 4 meters wide, and the drop of those curtains is actually 3.4 meters drop. They were at the time the largest curtains we'd ever made. You might not be able to tell, but they're actually made from a velvet as well, and they're interlined. They've got a double hand pinch pleat header for anybody who's interested, and velvet and interline means that they're incredibly heavy, so they're really quite heavy to hang. What you can also see is this beautiful braid that adorns the leading edge of every pair of curtains in that space. And the interior designer who worked on this project, it wasn't our own interior designer, it was the client's interior designer. She had actually requested that the braid had a darker blue chenille running across that braid to tie in the colour of the curtains and also other elements in that space. You can see also in this hallway space that there is a beautiful, beautiful now Gothic sofa. I really want you to see the photos of before we started work on it, and you can see that it's actually in storage, it's covered in dust. It's been in store, I don't even know how long it was in store for. And when you see pieces like this, it's sometimes difficult to imagine the beautiful things that you can do as an upholsterer myself. I can see the potential, but sometimes when you actually get there, it really does take your breath away. And I was pleased to have this piece back in its rightful place in this home, but I was so sad to let it go because it's one of my proudest pieces I've ever worked on. So we stripped this frame right back, we oiled the woodwork and then waxed it as well to really feed the woodwork and bring the colour back. The fabric that was chosen for this sofa is from Holland and Sherry. You'd think it would look a little bit like camouflage, but actually the interior designer called it Chinese clouds. Regardless, I really think this fabric is fantastic. I love the way it sits on the curves. I love the buttoning, and I would definitely use this fabric again. I just fell in love with every element of this Gothic sofa, and I think it looks fantastic in that setting, in that space, with the spectacular artwork above it. Moving on to the element of this home that caused quite the buzz on my social media, and that is this incredible 7-meter drop window, and to go with the window, a pair of stunning curtains. A lot of you are asking, how on earth did we hang them? But let me start from the beginning. Our very, very smart clients knew that this curtain had to be operated by an electric switch. It's not the type of curtain where you can draw it and open them yourself normally because they're so high. So at the very, very top there was an electrical point that we could hook our pole into. What's really nice about this curtain is that there were a lot of finials that were in the home from before it was renovated, and so we actually reused a pair of finials that you can see in that photo, and we attached it to a brand new pole which we had an electric track put into it, and then that was fitted with a tower scaffold. And then the measurement of the drop is approximately 6.8 meters. So we tried our very best to make the curtains in our workshop, and our soft furnishing workbench is 3 meters wide, and that normally works for lots of different pairs of curtains that we make. It was a real challenge for us to make these curtains the right drop. More on that in a second. So the tower scaffold is what we use to get the pole up. It's connected to the mains electricity with a switch at the bottom. And we made the curtains using a Delacoona fabric. It's beautiful, a heritage pearl. It's just, there's an iridescence about it which is stunning. Again, that was chosen by our client's interior designer. And actually what happened is over that drop, when we fitted the curtains, they actually stretched by about 10 centimeters. So we just let the fabric drop as much as possible, and then we actually went back to the home and we hand hemmed them in situ, and we wanted them to puddle ever so slightly at the request of our client. So we just added a little bit of a puddle there as well. And the previous curtains in the hall were the widest, biggest curtains we'd ever made. These curtains were the tallest we'd ever made. Such a great experience. I would definitely encourage anybody who's got a building project underway, or you're considering potentially starting a building project, or even if you're in the throes of having an architect design at the moment, if you can have a really tall window and make this incredible feature, do it. Moving on to the beautiful, beautiful crest chair that I fell in love with, to be quite honest with you. And to me, it seemed quite possible that the velvet that this beautiful crest embroidery work that was stitched to was the original velvet. You can see from the photos that it's seen a lot of wear, and there's actually some foam coming out on the seat base because it has been reupholstered before using foam that absolutely would not have been the original padding for this chair. And you can't quite tell in the photos, but a lot of the woodwork on the seat base rails had also disintegrated. So we repaired those, we stripped the chair right back, we repaired the woodwork. Again, we treated the woodwork just to bring that colour back to it. And our client actually chose the red velvet herself, which is like a Dutch red. And we took the crest off of that original velvet, and then we reattached it to that new velvet by hand using a translucent thread, so you can't actually see that it's been stitched on at all, which is just magic to me. And it sits there in all of its glory in the summer drawing room, where it should be, admired by everybody that comes into that room. It was a beautiful, beautiful piece, and I'm so glad that we could save that embroidered piece. Before I talk about this project, have a look at these photos and these close-up photos that Joe of Kindful Creative has taken, because this really is quite magical, and it's also a fantastic example of how collaboration with the client, the interior designer, and of course us, the makers, have created this incredible space, which is one of the bedrooms in this home. the bit that I want to talk to you about first is the headboard, because what had been purchased, and you can see these in the photos, are these two bedposts. And these bedposts, the brief was that we needed to use these bedposts and that we needed to create a headboard for them to attach to, and then this then to go into the bedroom. Not just that, then we had the corona above with this beautiful cascade of a sheer white voile that we had to try and work out as well. So at the beginning of this process, none of us were 100% sure about how this was going to turn out. But with collaboration from our client's daughter, whose room this is, she had actually created a sketch of what she liked the look of. And from her sketches, I was able to ascertain some sort of rough dimensions of where the headboard will sit in relation to the bedpost. So for example, at the peak of it, where that would sit in relation to the details on the posts themselves. So what I did with that information is I actually created the basic headboard shape using a piece of plastic, and I took that piece of plastic to the client's home and we actually stuck it to the wall to try and get the scale of it correct, but also the height of it as well, and whether that design was correct or not. So we left it stuck there. We had to do this also because the headboard with the bedpost needed to fit exactly between the light switches. So this development process made sure that we were getting our dimensions absolutely perfect. Anyway, we left the plastic stuck to the wall so that our client's daughter could approve it. And what's really interesting is that she asked for the headboard to be raised up by 100 mil, 10 centimeters, 4 inches in old money. And that really made all the difference. So it just goes to show these little details here and there, and really communicating with our client that we were able to really achieve every last detail that they wanted. Once we had the approval of that pattern, then it was time for us to make the framework. And you can see that we made the framework, from memory, I think it was 1.5 inches thick, because we wanted this lovely border piped front and back. And then we put some foam on the front of it. Over the top of the foam went a wool guard, it's called. And that really formed the foundation for the fabric to sit on top of beautifully. It's a ticking stripe fabric, which is classy, elegant, timeless, and it's sort of not quite plain. There's a bit of interest there. Once we had created the woodwork, we then figured out a way that we could attach the bedposts to the headboard. Then we had to figure out, of course, it needs to be absolutely stable at the back of that bed. So we actually took the headboard and the bedposts before it was upholstered to the home, and we fixed it to the bed and trialed everything before we upholstered it, because now's the time where we could reduce the width of it if it wasn't quite right, or change things if we needed to. What you can't see in the photos, well, you might be able to see, is that there's quite the gap between the back of the headboard and the wall, because the skirting is so deep. So what you absolutely can't see in the finished photos is we actually created a block, and I covered it in baize, and that really stops the headboard from rocking at all when you get up into bed. There's no movement on that whatsoever. Once that was all tickety-boo, it was time for upholstering. And you can see that we've used foam on the front and also on the top edge, because we want it to be padded all round. And there's a lovely piping detail on the front edge, and also a lovely piping detail on the back edge. And I love piping the backs of everything. I don't really like not piping the backs of things, because it's just one of those lovely details that I think makes an edge look finished. Of course, this room. It doesn't stop there. We then had to consider this stunning cascade of fabric, which is starting from this beautiful corona above the head, this beautiful corona above the headboard. And again, once the headboard was in place, we actually pulled the bed forward, and I physically was on a ladder positioning this corona higher, lower, you know, to get it right for the client, because it was such a key feature of this room. I love all of that kind of detail and that bespokeness. It really feeds my creative energy, and I love doing things that are not on the high street. Anyway, so once we had figured out the height of that corona, then we could have a play with this beautiful, elegant, subtle voile and how we were going to dress this now, because initially the idea was that the fabric, the voile, would actually cascade either side of the bed and somehow wrap around these poles. But when it came to doing that practically, it didn't really look right. And our client then decided that it would be much better, and I totally agree, to have the fabric draping behind the headboard and all the way around, and have these really gentle pleats. We have attached it to the back of those bedposts, and I think it makes for such a magical room. I love it. There are so many things in this home that are my pride and joy, and two more of those things are these stunning wingback chairs. And the real challenge with these wingback chairs is that there are actually 3 fabrics that were specified for reupholstering these chairs. Again, you can see these chairs in storage. The silk damask is disintegrating. They've seen better days for sure, and I really was amazed at this transformation, because it just goes to show that when those right fabrics are chosen and the right craftsman is doing the job, you really can create this magic. And these really did do it for me. They are, again, I'm very proud of the work that we do, but I have a bit of a chef's kiss with these ones, as well as the Gothic sofa. Anyway, it's another really good example of taking classic styles of furniture and really making them timeless or modernizing, and really putting your stamp on them. You don't necessarily have to cover something in all the same fabric. You can really mix it up and be creative with choosing a different type of fabric for the piping or the outside back, and I love that. I think it really brings a really extra something to furniture, and not just furniture, but your home interior. Let's start with this pattern fabric. The thing with a wingback chair, for any upholsterers out there who know, is that when you are pattern matching, you have to start inside out, back to front. If this was a plain fabric, you'd get all the inside wings, inside arm, and you'd get the platform in without even batting an eyelid, and then you'd make the cushion afterwards. But what I really wanted to make sure of was that the pattern ran from the back to the base on that front border and also onto that platform. And so it means that in some ways I started with the seat base first, and I cut the borders and the top and the bottom, and then I went to the platform and then the inside back. And I sort of jiggled everything about a little bit just to make sure that the position of that patterning was absolutely perfect. And then once that's all in place and ready to rock and roll, then you can start moving on to the outside sections. And the velvet for the outside sections was just this beautiful yellow velvet, and it really complemented the yellow in the iCat linen fabric that was printed on the inside there. And of course you'll be able to see that the piping is a different colour as well. On one of these chairs, the style of the frame is very different to the other. In fact, on one of them, the arm and the wing are absolutely flat all the way through. And on one of the photos of the finished article, you can see this beautiful sweeping curve of how I've managed to just get that velvet to butt up to that piping perfectly, and then the inside wing starts. And it's so satisfying to see that. And of course, again, for upholsterers out there, my fellow craftsmen out there, that flat panel then going into the outside arm section, it's all in one, the transition in the corner there to get that so that it's not puckering and so that you can't see any raw edge, it fills me with a lot of joy, the fact that I was able to finish it like that. And also a testament to our interior designer there as well, because those three fabrics chosen with our client just mix beautifully together. This is in the winter drawing room, and the combination of these fabrics on these chairs in this room couldn't be better. We worked on this house for over a year, and actually through lockdown as well, because the building trade didn't stop. And so when this home was in development, we didn't stop either. So what I'm showing you in a snapshot of a vlog is actually over a year's worth of work. In fact, it was more like 18 months, potentially 2 years if I remember rightly, but it's all a bit of a blur. And there's so much that I could show you. But all of the other photos are actually in the portfolio on my website, and also they'll be on social media as well over time, so you can always look at other stuff there. The project that I'm going to leave you with is the dining room tablecloth, and this was the first time that I had made a bespoke tablecloth, and actually I really love this concept because our client took a normal fabric and asked me to make a tablecloth from it, and this fabric was perfect for this room. Our client chose this Robert Kime fabric, which is stunning, and it's a printed linen. It's actually a Persian inspired design, and I made it into a tablecloth, and I'd never done this before in the history of my career, even when I was at Sunseekers. Not that you have tablecloths on Sunseekers, but what I loved about it is that this is a posh tablecloth, and I really loved the fact that it was as thought about as every other element in this home. And so the brief was to make sure that the drop of the tablecloth was to the floor. So the way that I did that was by joining the widths together. I knew how many I'd needed, I'd worked that all out, making sure that everything was pattern matched, of course. I took that big swathe of connected fabric to the home, and I laid it on, because you could take all the measurements you like, but trying to get the two end curves of the table patterned onto a fabric in your workshop is pretty difficult. I thought the best way to do this is to take my swathes of fabric to the home once it's all connected together, and then actually pin where the fabric dropped and get it pretty much perfect within 5mm tolerance. And then once it was pinned, I then created a little baby hem, 20mm hem, all the way around. Before I sewed my 20mm hem, I took it back to the house because it's such a lot of fabric, and what I didn't want to happen was for me to sew that hem into place and it be wrong anywhere. And as I say, this was a large project anyway, so I was to and from the home regularly. Once I was absolutely happy with it, I then sewed my hem closed and there it resides on that table in the original part of this home, in the dining room, looking beautiful in all its glory. I really could talk about this home for days, but we unfortunately don't have that long, and I feel very privileged and very lucky to have worked for these clients, and they very kindly allowed us to take photos that you've seen for our portfolio, and this is part of our portfolio. So sadly, this is the end of this particular vlog, and telling you about the behind the scenes really of everything that happens in my business, where we make bespoke interiors. And what I will leave you with is get ready for the next episode in this series. You really are not going to want to miss it, and I have got goosebumps just thinking about it, and I can't wait to see what you're going to think. But for now, you know what to do. Subscribe, hit the notifications button so you don't miss any video launches ever. Comment below, tell me what you think. If you've got any questions, write them in the comments and we'll try to get back to you as well. But I hope you've enjoyed this really in-depth look into what it takes to create a bespoke interior.